I'm going to call Potter Williams, but as I do it, I think I should explain to members that in deciding who gets the call, members of a select committee tend to get some preference. But Ms Williams has been calling now for over half an hour, which is much longer than any other person who's seeking the call. Potter Williams.
Kia ora, thank you. Tēnā koe, Mr Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this bill in committee stages. Mr Chairman, in this contribution, one of many I hope to take over the course of this committee stage, I too want to keep my comments specific to clause 4, parts 2 and 3 of that clause 4, which are specific to the age at which your child will be when you are work tested to seek part-time work. Mr Chairman, there are many aspects of this that concern me. As many people in this House, I too was a single parent of a young child, and I know the difficulties that anyone, whether you are parenting, co-parenting, or whether you're parenting alone, the difficulties that you have with young children and when you are required to go out to work and what happens with your child. What concerns me about the lowering of the age at which your child is when you are work tested is that there doesn't appear to be any evidence given that justifies that that is actually in the best interests of the child. None of the submitters to the Select Committee could provide any evidence at all that lowering the age at which you are required to be work tested for part-time work from 5 years old to 3 years old is actually in the best interests of your child. Now, given where this bill is called the Support for Children in Hardship, surely the care of your child as its mother or father or its significant adult in its life is of the prime, takes some primacy, Mr Chairman. But there has been nowhere in the Select Committee process by none of the submitters were able to provide that evidence. And I ask the Minister, please, if she would take a call and explain to the House why the decision was made to lower the age to 3. And why 3? Why not 4? Why not 2.5? Why not 3.5? Why the age of 3? The only reason I can find for justification of that age was a comment that the Children's Commissioner made that, on average, when parents return to the workforce after the birth of their children, that child is usually around the age of 3. That is the only evidence that has been submitted to the Select Committee for the reason why the age should be dropped to 3. There is no other evidence that shows that it is in the best interests of your children. None. All of the Select Committee submitters disagreed with lowering the age. There was not a single one who said that they were in favour of lowering the age. That should be evidence enough to say that this is not a good move and it is not in the interests of the child. Now let's quote some of the submitters. The nurses organisation, they are concerned not only for the well-being of parents, but they were also concerned about many aspects, health of the children, health and well-being. But they say the stricter work testing obligations and punitive sanctions regime, because let's face it, if you don't, if for some reason you don't meet the obligations that are required, you could face sanctions, and there were 80,000 sanctions that happened in the last year alone, and of that, it impacted 44,000 children. When a family is sanctioned, it means that money is taken out of their pockets, and the children are impacted by that. So when the nurses' organisation say the stricter work testing obligations and punitive sanctions regime Requiring parents to be available when their youngest turns 3 rather than 5, as at present, is arbitrary and ignores child developmental and differences in family circumstances. Arbitrary, meaning there is no good reason. It is not acting in the best interests of the child. The health of both parents and children is a significant consideration in parents' ability to work outside the home. Mr Chair.
Poto Williams.
Thank you. Nearly a quarter of Aotearoa New Zealand's children are affected by asthma, for example, and we are particularly vulnerable in their preschool years. It is a well-known cause of low and interrupted attendance at school and at work. Parents should not be pressured into leaving young children. If a parent is negatively stressed at work, the impact on the children is likely to be negative. Some of the contributors have already spoken about the difficulties in entering into childcare services for their children. Many of us know that if your children become sick, they cannot attend childcare. If your child can't attend childcare, you cannot attend work. If you cannot attend work, does that mean that your family will have a sanction imposed? That's right. So it leaves very little options for particularly people who parent alone. Leaves very little options, and it isn't acting in the best interests of the children. Young children, particularly in the ages 2 to 3, do get sick often. And when they are sick, as I say, they cannot go to childcare. Where are the services to be set up to support either that parent to have some other form of childcare that doesn't involve going to a public childcare service, such as private in-home carers? Is that going to be available? Where is the support from the employer where parents have sick children? We know that many of these parents are in precarious, low-paid employment where employers can get another worker at a moment's notice. So if they have any sense of unreliability about them, particularly if they have children who are sick and they have to stay home and care for them, they are likely to not be employee of the month and potentially lose their jobs. How is that in the best interests of their children? Minister, I really urge you to stand and take a call on this. Let's see, what else have we got? Oh yes, I do want to talk about the Council of Trade Unions, because they spoke not only of the 58,000 people seeking part-time work, seeking part-time work, but the 100,000 part-time workers who are currently looking for more hours. So we're going to require these parents to seek work. We all agree that being in work is beneficial, well-paid work, secure work, but balance that against the pressure that they come under to find work when there is 100,000 part-time workers seeking more hours, diminishing the pool of part-time work available. They also say that, this is the Council of Trade Unions submission, that single mothers in particular face a range of economic penalties as well as social difficulties, and they're more likely to find only unpredictable part-time work, making it hard for them to access the childcare and other support they need in order to work for their work to be feasible. Childcare is not universally available across the country at a time that is suitable for when you may or may not be required to work. We know that many of these parents will be in roles that may be shift work, may be outside of the normal hours of childcare arrangements. What then? Are they to be, how are they to be in a position that they can find part-time work?
Order, I regret interrupting the member, but the time has come for me to report progress.
Members, the House is resumed.
Mr Speaker,
Mr Chair.
the committee has considered the International Finance Agreements Amendment Bill and reports it without amendment. The committee has also considered the Taxation Bright Line Test for Residential Land Bill and reports it without amendment. The committee has also considered the Support for Children in Hardship Bill and reports progress. The committee has not further considered the Weathertight Homes Resolution Services Amendment Bill and therefore reports no progress. Mr Speaker, I move that the report be adopted.
The question is that the report be adopted. Those of that opinion will say aye, and to the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The International Finance Agreements Amendment Bill and the Taxation Bright Line Test for Residential Land Bill are set down for third reading next sitting day. The Support for Children in Hardship Bill and the Weathertight Homes Resolution Services Amendment Bill are set down for further consideration in committee next sitting day. Members, the House stands adjourned until 2 p.m. tomorrow. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.